how you got shaped. You end up coming back. You end up in Curacao.
I was in Holland. I was in Holland. Did the thing. Started working. My grandmother passed away in 2002. 2003. I came back. I went to Curacao.
I went to
Una.
Yeah. And then you got another.
I went there to do business administration with a specialization in public administration.
In that you finished, or you?
No, I went to the final class
and then you came back to Monet.
No, I stayed working in Curacao.
And you
got married and everything.
Yeah.
And was doing public administration. First in my teenager years here at SGB, we started as kids. We started the leerlingenraad. So how you say the student body here at SGB already. But when I went to Una, the first year I really put in my Clark, don't focus on your studies.
Don't get into.
That's not
getting. Don't be active.
Don't. But in the second year, I did. I put myself electable for the student body council. Got elected.
Mid-20s.
I was 23.
23.
Yeah, got elected. Was a good campaign actually. It was funny. Because back then at the student body, everybody was coming with the campaign started, and everybody was putting a paper with a picture of themselves, and this my name is blah blah blah.
You had a different strategy.
Yeah, and I did a campaign. I just made a blank paper.
Yeah.
And I put on it, it said, don't vote for faces, vote for vision. And everywhere where they put theirs, I put one of mine. And I just put under it, don't vote. This is my second year to school.
Did you put a name there?
And I just put a Clark or a Clark out.
Yeah.
It's a blank page, don't vote, no picture, nothing, just that, next to everybody. So everywhere they put one, I put one. And I went at night when nobody knew. So one day they woke up and everyone was looking at what the hell.
Who's this?
So they started asking, who's this? And this is my second year at school. I'm from Bonaire. Nobody knows who the hell I am. I'm just walking there at school. And then it was, I think, 3 days before the election day. And then I put a thing with a paper,
with your position,
with a picture and positions that we stand for. Landslide.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was a landslide. I've been president of the student body council. I was president practically for 7 years, even when I left the UNA. But I'll explain that story also. I was there. We had to restart I wanted to restart the student paper. We didn't have a student paper, so we got a couple of guys, a couple of friends of ours. We started a student paper. A lot of work. It came out once a month, but it's a lot of work because I had like 5 different topics that I was responsible for. Interviews. I had this big book of historical journalism. The paper was in English. Una started a policy to have English higher education courses. My study.
Which, by the way, is the case in the Netherlands now. A lot of the courses in university.
But that's what I mean. So my primary was in Dutch. My secondary was in Dutch. My advanced is in English. If I'm already at advanced education,
why bother?
It's possible because I already supposedly learned. The problem was, for me, it's not so much a problem because I love language. No, I love language. I love to focus on origins of language and decipher language. In Dutch, there's a very peculiar. For example, give an example. Just an example. In Dutch, you say gebruiken, misbruiken, and verbruiken. And I'm trying to find in English and Spanish similar words, which isn't, because gebruiken means to use. Misbruiken means to abuse. But verbruiken means to use to absolution, no, to use to till it's finite. No, finite? No, till it's finished, till it's done. And it's funny how language is, because again, language is an instrument, and the better you can dominate language, the better you can express things. So that's why it's so difficult. If somebody doesn't master the language, you get lost in translation, and that's the biggest problem with that. So, but let's go back to the story. So, in Curacao, we did a student paper, a lot of work, fun, a lot of debate. For example, the whole debate, we don't have a reading culture in our islands. And I remember one of the articles that I had was about that so we don't like to read, and now when we go to school, the only thing we read is what the school decides that we must read. So you're, in my opinion, an intellectual slave, because people are deciding what knowledge you are willing or able or allowed to get. You're limiting your potential, you're limiting yourself. Me, myself, I love to read since small, and reading only amplifies your thoughts. Reading amplifies your possibilities, not so much your personal possibilities, but the possibilities that your mind, the things that your mind accepts as being possible. Anyway, and I had this book which had 100 years of journalism in it. So the book says 100 years of journalism, and it went from the date that it was published, I think it was 1997 or something, it was published, and it went 100 years back, or 2000, 100 years back, to a year and a month. What was the most important thing that happened in world news? And I started a column that we would always go 100 years back.
To that date?
Yeah, to that date, or sometimes
and then connected
30,
to...
Exactly, or so 30 or 40. And it's funny because it was, the idea behind it was to show people that nothing's new under the sun. That maybe we're debating something right now, and if it happened
30, 40 years ago,
50 years ago, 30 years ago. For example, we had a student rising in Curacao. We were trying to do some things because, and I was explaining to them the month, that's funny, yeah? In 1969, in May, the month that you had the public rising in Curacao, that same month or the month before, in Holland, you had a student rising at one university. So while the population of our islands were fighting for civil rights, student body was fighting for extra rights. So it just shows you
where the places were,
where we
relatively
are,
speaking.
yeah, where we are in the progress of life,
of freedom,
of freedom,
self-empowerment,
and we can say a lot, you know. Oh, 1969, 30th May.
Sure.
In that 60s, what was happening in the States in that same period? But if we, and how many times have we had it here in school that we're taught that we're put the relation, because a lot of times we think about outside, oh yeah, that 69, the burning of Curacao. Then have we ever really put it in context?
what was going on in Holland, in the US, elsewhere in the
especially
world.
the US back at that time. In South Africa, starting at that time to culminate later on in the long walk to freedom. What was happening in the rest of the Caribbean? What happened in Cuba? What happened? So if you put it in social, whenever have in our education system
has it been connected? Like
have we been trying to connect them for us to understand where we are in the
relatively
progress of life? Because those things are valuable, Adnan, for a populace to move forward. Is to know where they are, for them to value what is forward or not. So in those days, that's what we're doing with student papers. I stayed 7 years there. We did 2 student uprising. We achieved to have 850 students on their feet in that uprising in 2017. I wasn't supposed to lead it anymore because I was trying to get out of the student thing to finish my studies.
Yeah, but it was too powerful a force.
Sorry?
It was too powerful influence.
Yeah, well, yes, Yes, and also life's motto in the sense like standing aside and complain is not an option. So if you find that something can
You
be
gotta
done,
do something.
get
There's something
your feet in the mud.
happening back then also in your personal life. You got married when you were in Curacao?
I got married when I was 30. Yeah, 2000. I got married on 10/10/10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
this is a date to remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And at that point, your wife is from
Curacao.
From
yeah,
Curacao.
but I knew her already. I knew my ex-wife since I was 16.
and
I saw her and we met each other.
did you have kids together or no?
I had a stepson.
She already had.
Yeah, I had a
You
stepson.
you had one.
Yeah, I had a
You
stepson.
from-
Yeah,
from
she
a-
had another child,
yeah.
and
So both
my
of you had
stepson.
brought into the relationship.
No.
Oh.
She had one son, and my stepson, my stepson, and 2 years later, in 2012,
Yeah.
We had our child.
Oh, you did that.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah.
But then in 2007, I stopped. I started in 2003. Wait a minute. Now you say 2003. I started. I was 4 years student, 5 years student council president. I stopped when I really stopped at school.
And then you returned back.
No.
You stayed-
Yeah,
what-
I stayed in Holland.
No, you stayed in Curacao.
I stayed in Curacao. I was in the last year. I only had to make
Yeah.
4 classes and make my scripts, but they lost all my grades
Yeah.
and it became a drama. Anyway, so I went to do my practicals, which was I went to work for a foundation that did remigration work. So
In Curacao.
in Curacao. We were bringing Antillians back to the islands and finding a way how can we get them back.
Yeah.
And there was 2 ways. So we're trying to get them in their 3rd year and trying to get them back on the island when they're doing the practicals themselves
Yeah.
and try to reintroduce them to
Back
the
to
islands
that.
because they leave so young.
Yeah.
They don't know their island.
Yeah.
And we had a success rate of 30%, which was high at that time. 30% through us direct. So what I mean is, because we had 2, we had the students, out of the 100 that we got a year to come do the practicals, 30 we facilitated to get a job for them later on. So we were trying to measure also what is success rate. And we measured also, we have to try to not get them in the last year of practicals, we have to get them in the
But
Third
they can
year,
still
they-
be influenced by the appeal
Well, a
of
lot of
being back
times
home.
when they're in their last years,
So
maybe
it's
they already got a job
set,
offer,
set.
or they already
Too late.
planned out their
Too
career.
late.
They met the boyfriend or the
Yeah.
girlfriend who's maybe not a local,
Yeah.
and before you know it, they have a mortgage,
Yeah.
they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
25 years gone.
Yeah. So then, in Dutch we would say, huisje, boompje, beestje, gone. It's very difficult to get them back. Because the price to get them back,
Yeah,
I have a European loan,
Yeah.
I have I in euros, they're paying me this,
Yeah.
my lifestyle is that, and
For
it's
sure.
very difficult to get them back. But I went there for practicals, and in the middle of my practicals, I got a job offer, and within a year I was manager of the place.
Of the farm.
So then I got into the board. And the day that I stopped there. Yeah, I quit there to move to Bonaire. Because it was 2007. I was working there because my father was going to become commissioner, and he wanted me to come help him in the bureau to support policies and stuff. And I was working for the company in Curacao, but I still have very good relationship with him. And I told him the options, and he said, okay, yeah. So I left that job, I quit, came here to support. Government lasted 6 months, actually 9 months total, but I worked here 6 months. And it was
2007?
2010. So I
2010.
started working, I started
okay.
practicals 2007.
Oh, this is the 10th.
I got a job. At that time when I was leaving, I
Yeah.
was in the management of the unit.
Yeah.
Then I came here to work here for the first. So I quit my job. I came to work here 6 months, and this is 2010, right? So I came to work March. I'm getting married 10/10/10. Mind you, we decided on that date before the day decided. So they even stole our date.